Well, hello to each and every one of you that's joining us today for this particular Love Akron Live. I am Lori Porter and I'm the operations coordinator for Love Akron. Well, we're here today and I hope you have your lunch with you. I didn't quite bring a lunch, but I, in fact, did bring a beverage. My favorite beverage of the day today is water. We need to get the water in, right? So it's so exciting to be with you here on Facebook Live and on YouTube. Let me encourage you today to like, share, and follow us. Today, I'm going to be speaking with a group of folks, interviewing, talking to them, and we're really just going to have a conversation while you all just kind of travel along with us while we talk about an experience that a few folks have had over the last 18 months. We call this group the Jedi Council. Jedi stands for justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And I don't know if you remember back when the George Floyd murder had occurred, we did something called connection versus collision, the black and white conversation. And we started talking about how this was affecting our nation, our communities, and then locally, how it would affect us as not just communities, but individuals, our churches, our homes. And so we would come on and we had a panel of folks like Bishop Johnson. I mean, there were a plethora of people who came on and talked about their experience in a, if you will, black and white conversation. So from that, we would not just have these panelists come on and talk about things like there's a statistic that says that 75% of white people say that they don't have a meaningful relationship with a black person. So because of that statistic, there were more things that came out. Bishop Johnson shared with us that we can only move at the speed of trust. And if black people don't trust white people and white people don't trust black people, it would be very, very difficult for us to ever establish meaningful relationships. So this group, the Jedi group, was kind of birthed out of a group of folks who said the panelists were great. The show, the broadcast was wonderful. But now that we've listened and we're learning, how are we going to lead in this kind of walk together? And so we called it Next Steps. So 2 weeks later, we'd invite people to come into a Zoom room and talk about, have a dialogue, a very transparent. We talked about being hot earlier this morning at the 7 o'clock Connect, humble, open, and transparent. But how do we, as individuals, black folks, white folks, just human beings, how do we bring our concerns? How do we come and talk in a very transparent, open, honest, humble way? And so what was birthed out of our time together was through this next steps conversation was what we call the Jedi Council. And so today I've got with me a few folks. And so we're gonna, I don't know if Coach Kemp made it in yet. This is a big group for us today, and we're normally not this heavy in guests, but we invited the entire council to come along with us. There's Kemp Boyd, there's Penny Card, there's Susie Cottrell, there's Alan Fortnoff, there's Jocelyn Grant, and you guys can bring them on the screen, a few of them at a time. There's Amy Crawford, Missy Garcher, Karen Hartlicka, and Kathy Bear. I want to tell you all that it has been a joy watching you all evolve. And I've seen some evolving. I know Kathy and I were supposed to get together and do something. We were going to have tea, and I think she was going to have wine and I was going to have tea. I don't know what we were doing. But, not only does COVID have us separated, but I don't know about you all. Would you agree that and you can just do kind of a nod of the head. That in COVID, it seems like we're busier than ever before.
Mhm.
Does it seem
Yeah.
like there's like no time anywhere? We're just always trying to catch up. But Kathy, we're gonna get together and get whatever it is we're drinking. We're gonna get that and get to know each
It was
other.
supposed to be over a glass of wine.
That's right. She was gonna have wine. I was gonna have tea. I'm not a wine drinker, so sorry. I live a pretty boring life. But we're gonna do that. I'd like to give just a second, if we could, to let each of the gal, and we do have some guys in Jedi, so this is a gal and guy thing, but just kind of, if you would, sort of introduce yourself, and I know that there is a vision statement, and you all open every meeting with that vision statement, and that vision statement says. Um, that well I thought I had the vision statement. It's not on the paper.
Want me to read it, Lori?
Yeah, could you read it? Could somebody read it
Sure.
for us? Vision
Sure. The
statement.
purpose of the Jedi Council is to provide the opportunity to encounter individuals from diverse backgrounds in the quest for a higher level of understanding and connection that our times call for. In our commitment to justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, we will listen, learn, and lead responsibly to address the four levels of racism as we have identified them. One, internalized within us. Two, interpersonal between people. Three, institutional within society or organizations. And four, structural racisms within systems. And then we define responsibly listen, responsibly learn, and responsibly lead. But I know you're going to get to that in a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess, we're waiting. Coach Kemp is going to come in a little bit. So this is that great thing that happens when you're doing live stuff. It just gets switched around. So you just kind of go with the flow, right? So I'm gonna and I won't. I'm gonna pick on Jocelyn today. When you think about that vision statement, I'd like for each of you to just take a moment and give us your name. Tell us how you came to know Love Akron, and then the one part of the vision statement that kind of resonates for you, your name, how you came to love Akron, the organization you represent, and what part of that vision statement kind of resonates with you. And I'll start with Jocelyn, and we'll just kind of go around the room.
Hello, my name is Jocelyn Grant, and I came to know about Love Akron. I've been working in nonprofit for many years now. And in a former position, I came to know about Love Akron. Presently, I'm the Education and Volunteer Director at South Street Ministries. And one of my tenets of my position is to be involved in the community. And I was invited as to be a panelist in the first series of Connection versus Collision as a result of the murder of George Floyd. And I participated quite a bit. Consequently, somehow, I was invited to also be a part of the Jedi Council, and for it to take its own shape for the last 18 months has been a joy. The part of the statement that I think that I resonate most with is moving at the speed of trust. I think that oftentimes when we're talking about diversity and inclusion or equity, especially equity, there is a haste in movement in trying to make a statement, trying to commit an action, to make sure that we are counted in the number, and that would be individuals, organizations, businesses, so forth and so on, that we are counted in the number as people who are on board with the idea of equity and inclusion and diversity. However, I'm excited and very happy that we took time, a year and a half, to really know one another, to allow the opportunity to disagree, to agree, to inform. We've had very difficult conversations, but it's all been at the speed of trust. And so I'm just glad to be a part of the group, the council.
Thank you, Jocelyn, so much. I know, Jocelyn and I have been in quite a few of those conversations together, and she is that sister, I'm telling y'all, that will take your breath away. Sometimes Jocelyn can say a thing, and it's like, whew, okay, let me breathe on that for a minute. But how many of you know that we need that? We need that. We need that transparency. We need that openness. Susie, uh, you know, talk to us a little bit. Susie, guys, really she's like they don't have a chain of command, but it's oftentimes if Kemp can't be to a meeting, he'll say, "Yeah, Susie's got it," and so she's like the assistant to the executive director on the Jedi Council, if you will, because she is just that go-to. And we appreciate your fervor and your passion for this work that we're doing together, so that we can not just this small group, but we hope to expand it out and help our community to thrive. Talk to us a little bit. The same question as Jocelyn: your name, how you got involved, who you represent, um, affiliation, and then when you think in terms, whether it's the vision statement that you all, as the Jedi, have adopted, or something else that has resonated for you, what would that be?
Sure, Lori, thank you. Well, yeah, my name's Susie Cottrell, and I work for Cap Trust Financial Advisors. I got introduced to Love Akron through my employer, Steve Wilt, and, just decided to take a chance and start attending the meetings. It just felt critical. After the murder of George Floyd, it was like a line for a lot of people, like, absolutely something needs to change. I need to do something. I'm jumping in here to this situation where I don't know anyone, but it's worth it. So I did want to mention on the vision statement, the section of responsibly listen is what really resonates with me. And that is, it's a two-liner, or maybe a one-liner. I'll read it to you real quick. So we assume personal responsibility to humbly listen when others are ready to tell their stories and move at the speed of trust, making the commitment to stay in the conversation with each other. And for me, true listening is a responsibility. It takes effort. There might be heightened energies in the room. There might be heightened emotions. There's information coming at you you've never heard before. You might feel that the speaker is misinterpreting something you said, but it's consciously putting that aside for now, and being open and present in the moment to listening, to really hear what's being relayed to you. And the beauty of staying in the conversation with each other is that all these concerns that you put aside so that you can be fully present, they can be revisited later. But your responsibility in the moment is to listen, and to drop any filters that you may have coming in to the information that's being relayed to you. That's not easy. So that's another personal responsibility. Say, to the best of my ability, I'm going to take these filters away, try to receive in the way that it's being told to me. And I've just noticed that more and more, like in this group especially, that you have to take that stance if you are going to hear, and really listen what's happening. So yeah, that's mainly what I wanted to share. And I think that this small group opportunity to do that, I really have the belief in that if it were to spread, it really has the power to change a lot, So thank you.
Absolutely. I agree, Susie. And I love that part of the vision statement that you all have created, that listen responsibly. And I heard that saying years ago, some people listen to talk versus listening to hear. And I don't know if we really realize that listening is a skill set that some people just it's a skill set. Like, you have to train your mind and your every inner part to really absorb what a person is saying, to process it in exactly what you said, in the way they're saying it, before you respond to what they're saying. Well, Amy on my screen is right above Susie, so I'm going to pick on Amy. I met her and her husband a couple of years back, and they are certainly lovely people. And Amy has just stuck it out with us. And thank you, Amy, for continuing to be here with Love Akron. And good to see your smiling face every time Jedi comes up. But I want to say, even to the viewing audience, we are going to take a moment. If you have some questions, you can post them in the chat. And there's going to come a time during our lunchtime together that we're going to answer any questions that you have. Again, this is the Jedi Council. It is justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. It was what we called next steps right after we rolled out the connection versus collision, the black and white conversation. This was, we can keep talking about it all day long. We can talk about racial healing until we're blue in the face, right? And we can all turn blue, trust me. We can all turn blue. But we can talk about it forever. But if we do not put in the work to really, as Bishop Johnson brought to our attention in such a huge way, if we do not find a way to move at the speed of trust and get to the place where we can trust one another, then can you imagine what the next generation? I think about my 13 grandchildren. I can't even imagine. I know I got them good genes. I think about my grandchildren and I'm like, I want the world to be a better place for them. I don't want them to have to live with what we've lived with. So Amy, tell us where you hail from, how you got connected. I told them a little bit of that, right? What part of that vision statement or anything that's been said over these 18 months just resonates with you?
Oh, thank you. And thank you, Lori, because you and Kemp and Chad connected me, honestly, through that Love Connect, which I know you had this morning, which was awesome. And Judge Donna Carr was a part of that too. So I think what resonates with me with that vision statement is responsibly lead, because we all play a role in whatever space and place we work and play in leading. We're all leading something. I'm just going to read it again because I liked your idea, Susie, of reading it, only because it's new to maybe folks that are listening, and it's always good to repeat things. It says, we assume personal responsibility to help develop strategies to address the forces of injustice while committing to work in the spirit of peace, knowledge, and love, which that ending part, peace, knowledge, and love, is like really resonates. And the way we do that is we're practitioners of this. And that's why connection versus collision was so powerful. I was glued to that series. So thank you, Love Akron, for doing it. It was super challenging. It kind of covered a lot of our vision statement, the lead part, especially the lead part. So for me personally, that's what hit me and resonated so strongly. So I work for a ministry nonprofit called Young Life. And so because I'm in that space, it gives me time to practice some of the things I'm learning, because someone said earlier, I think, Laura, you said, we can do all this and listen, but we do have to practice. And this has been a great place for me to practice and become a practitioner. So thank you. That's my,
I love
that's
it.
what resonates with me.
I love that. I never thought about us being practitioners, but you're right. You know, for racial healing, we have to put into practice everything that we've learned. When we gain knowledge of something, if we just take that knowledge and don't do anything with it, it reminds me of what T.D. Jakes said one time. He talked about the dash. He said, when you go to a cemetery, there's the day a person was born and the day that they die. He said, and the question is, what will you do with the dash? And so I think about that. What will we do with all of the knowledge and information we have gained? And I'm so excited for you ladies and the two fellas that are not here with us today, and the work that you guys are putting in to get to know one another so that we can move at the speed of trust. Missy Garcher, I'm coming for you, sister. Talk to us. How did you get here? Tell us who you are. Talk about, what it is that sticks out, whether it's the vision statement or something else you've heard along the way these 18 months, and why it is that you're still here. I mean, Jedi is just, man, you guys are amazing.
Sure. Thanks, Lori. I got introduced to Love Akron
before Kemp came. I've been in Akron for 22 years. And so I was going to the in-person meetings for several years. And then we transitioned and Kemp came, and I got involved because I love Akron. And as we transitioned into this new season with the Jedi, it's difficult for me to separate the responsibility to listen, learn, and lead. I think it all resonates for me. But since other people have spoken about listen and lead, the learn actually has been good for me, um, to focus on. I grew up in Columbus City and was educated in the city schools there. I live in Akron in Highland Square. My kids went to Akron Public Schools. And so there was a tendency for me just to kind of fall back on my experience and not feel like I needed to learn anything else. And so this has humbled me as I've come into these conversations, as we've done some one-on-one lunches and opportunities to just be curious. And as conversations have come up, I'm pushed to do my own work and not rely not just on these conversations, but to go and do my own learning. And then to take that into my own, as Amy said, practice. I think that's a beautiful way of putting it, is that we're not just gaining all this head knowledge, but then we actually live it out and we have conversations that are sometimes uncomfortable. We make missteps, but then because we've started to move, as Jocelyn's nodding her head, her and I have had some conversations, we are afraid to stay at the table and have conversations for fear of offending or fear of saying the wrong thing. But because we've built this trust over these, 18 months, we stay and we lean in and we work to build more trust and to stay curious and to gain deeper understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's good. That takes me back, Missy, to what Amy said about peace and love, you
Mhm.
know, because I think that's what's at the core of it. It's like I said one time I read a thing that said the good thing about the church is it's like a family.
Mhm.
And the bad thing about the church
Mhm.
is it's like a family, right? And
Mhm.
so when I think of Jedi, I think it's the same thing. The good thing about it is it's like a family, and the bad thing about it is it's like a family. It doesn't matter how dysfunctional or whatever family members might be. I can't unsister or unbrother you. Like
Right.
nothing. I can change my name. I can move to another country, but it's not going to change the fact that we are connected by blood, right? And
Mhm.
I think for those that might be watching today that are of the Christian faith, then we understand that as believers, and this is not a believers only, this is not, let me say, this is not a Christian only group here, because we have people of different faiths that are walking together. Again, Bishop said, we only move at the speed of trust. How can I trust you if I don't know you, right? And so I'm going to go pick on my sister Kathy over here, and I love her. She's so hilarious. I said, Sharina, get in there and help Kathy, because this technology, she was like my sister for real. And Sharina and Danny will tell you, I probably drive them crazy because I'm like, oh my God, make it do whatever. And yeah, Penny can attest to that, my technological challenges. But I'm learning how to just sit back and relax and let the people behind the scenes make me look good. I hope I try to give them a little something to work with. But Kathy, talk to us. How did you land here? We've done some work with the Interfaith Council. I know Love Akron has for a gazillion of years. Um, how did you come here? What resonates for you in this 18 months as it relates to the vision statements and or some other statement that you've heard these last 18 months?
Well, hi, Lori. Thank you. And I did have technological issues, and I still do a little bit, but we're going to do the best. At least I can hear everyone. Um, so, as you guys all know, I'm Jewish. And when George Floyd was murdered, my whole body broke. It just hit me like a ton of bricks, and I couldn't stop crying. I knew I had to do something, that this wasn't right with the world. And I started doing some research, and I knew that the Jewish community, of which I've worked for my entire career as a professional, I knew they were putting together a black and white conversation. And someone that worked within our Jewish community said, "You need to talk to Kemp Boyd. You need to get involved with Love Akron. Like, this guy is amazing, and they're having these black and white conversations, and you need to do this." And I reached out to Kemp, and we connected, and I missed, I think, one or two of the connection versus collision. So I looked back, watched the videos, absorbed everything on the website, started coming to the sessions, and just fell in love with everyone that I was hearing from, the panelists, the conversations. And at the same time, being that there's, especially today, there's so much anti-Semitism. I knew that I could relate maybe better, even though I'm a white person, to what was going on in Black communities. Little did I know. I learned to be a better listener through this whole series of conversations with the Jedi Council. It also made me look at Black Jewish relationships. It also, through Kemp, I was able to find the House of the Lord, and we partnered on a program that I'm very proud of that I did last year about Blacks and Jews, and the relationship that we have. And so, I have been very insulated in the Jewish community, and this has brought me out to the community, to all these amazing, wonderful people who I'm in awe with every time I talk to them, and I learn so much. And honestly, I think the vision statement, I'm listening more responsibly. I'm learning every single time we're together, even today. And it's helping me lead more activities and conversations within the Jewish community, and then within the Black and general community. So I
That's
love these
beautiful.
people.
Yes, yes. And you feel the love. I know Susie and I were talking when we were planning last week, and Kemp always tells me like I live in the deep weeds. I'm a deep weed kind of gal. But I'm telling you that you can feel the love, you can feel the connection when you get these folks together. It's amazing. And so, certainly, Kathy, we are glad that you are here with us, and we are glad for the connection. I mean, the Jewish community, and I know the House of the Lord have done a couple of things. Since this has begun, and even before this, this work has been going on for a little while. I'd like to, bring Penny to the forefront. And Penny talked to us. I know she came to connect originally, and Penny is just one of those folks that she's like a Girl Friday. Now, I know you all will remember what a Girl Friday is. Judge Donna Carr did a cheer this morning, and it was about being hot, hot. Our team is red hot. And Coach Kemp kind of looked like, So when we got off the call, I said, Donna, girl, they don't know nothing about that cheer. Me and you was doing that cheer in 8th grade, and we had a great laugh. But it reminds me, so I'm saying a Girl Friday, meaning that I know that this group will know what that is. And that was pretty much a girl that was in the office that could do any and everything. I mean, you name it, she could get it done. That would be our Penny. So Penny, come talk to us about how you got engaged. What kind of resonates for you as it refers to the vision statement that you all have, and or some other statement that has happened? Talk to us.
I got involved with Love Akron when I moved back into the community about almost 7 years ago. I got involved with Love Akron and part of the Inner Circle Connection. And from there, I asked Pastor Lori what else to do, and she hooked me up with Jedi, which I was just like, okay. But I could see after the first meeting, it was really a God appointed destiny for me, if you will, because it really resonated with life experiences and things that after George Floyd that really allowed us to connect of what is racism, what is being biased. And really, I say that what resonated is to learn, because I think oftentimes those that are victors, those that are victims, and those that just don't know, often we all have our own truth. And this is a great counsel to be able to take whatever we thought we knew and to be able to understand what we didn't know. So what we gained was we learned. We learned each other's not only personalities, but from each other's viewpoint. Just like our last one was dealing with Martin Luther King and what that looked like for someone that may be white and someone that may be black. And then just being unbiased about what we think we knew about that. And so that's what I really love about joining with this coalition, because I think that it will grow and expand. And also, it gives us a chance with Love Akron to be able to do the noun to a verb. You know, we're able to be active in everything that we're learning, and we're able to enhance our growth with what we're learning. And to me, that's an awesome opportunity, because we affect our whole community, whether we're a church community, work community. I'm a big advocate with mental health, and whether that may affect any taboos that we currently deal with today. I think that this is a great council to be able to come together to help with those taboos, because if we can get out of the frame of any form of ignorance or assumption, I think that that utilizes us as better individuals from day to day.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. That's good, Penny. That those deep conversations, what we think we know, what we think we know, and that's amazing, because sometimes we think we know and we don't, and until we hear more information and we hear someone else's heart and we hear someone else's experience, and then it's like, wow, I never knew.
Right.
I know that I think it was Gina Berkmeyer that said on one of those panel discussions, she was a panelist, she and her husband Scott at one point, and Gina said, I think sometimes white people are afraid that if black people were in power, that they would do to white people what white people did to them. I'm telling you that it was our local NAACP president. If you could have saw her face after, she was just like, it was one of those moments that it was like, okay, that's a thought. There's been so much that has come up about racial healing, and sometimes people would say we need to. What is the other word that they use? Not racial healing, but as if we want to do something again. And I'm like, no, we want to heal. That's what we want. We don't want to go back to what it was, because it was never good. And that's all the way from biblical time. I mean, this is not new. This is not new. So Karen Hardlicker, I tell you, I will remember Karen forever, because I remember seeing her last name one time and I was like, is that spelled wrong? And then I had to just pronounce it out. So tell us about your last name too, because I'm curious. But she is just the most sweetest, gentle soul that I have ever had the encounter of meeting. And so she's just a sweet, sweet lady. I mean, if Karen yells, I mean, only her family will know that. We don't know that, but she just reminds me of a lamb. That's just, I always just think she's so sweet. And we're going to get together too, Karen, one of these days real soon, because we were supposed to get together too. COVID, boo on COVID. That's
Boo on COVID.
Yeah. So Karen, talk to us a little bit, your experience, your name, how you got here, and what sticks out, what resonates.
Well, first of all, thank you. I'm very humbled by your introduction. But I have been in nonprofit work most of my life. I currently am at the Akron Community Foundation, but I met Coach Kemp through Leadership Akron. He was in my class, and so I am a problem solver as a nonprofit leader and a lifelong learner. And so within my organizations, when I was a leader, I knew to solve a problem that it really depended on relationship. But I also operated in the larger uh, issues of social determinants of health and bigger things that I couldn't solve. And Kemp became kind of my go-to person to talk to him about bigger issues. For example, when I was led Vantage Aging, we had a program for older adults that were displaced, and I would have people that on paper, master's prepared white person and master prepared Black person. We would upskill them and send them out to the world, but consistently we had I could see that people got jobs faster when they were white than they were Black, and so I was operating in this world. So it's very difficult to solve the problems. But then when George Floyd happened and Kemp talked about the fact that we cannot have this conversation and solve this issue just when there's an issue. Like there needs to be an ongoing relationship and conversation to go on. And I said, Kemp, I'm all in. I don't know how to do this, but I'm in. And so I came to the Jedi Council, and it has been such a rich experience. I have seen different perspectives of the world in so many ways, and they all know. My last thing is always like, "What's the hope in this?" and sometimes, we've had some really difficult questions that sometimes we can be hopeful and sometimes we can't. But talking at the speed of trust and knowing these folks, we've had some really difficult conversations, but it has equipped me to be an advocate within the world too. So
Amazing, amazing, amazing. Something you said about ongoing. It has to be ongoing. Y'all can say that. Say that with me. It has to be ongoing. We can't, and that's what this Jedi group has done. That's what you guys have been about, meeting, and you all now meet twice a month, and it's lunchtime. I don't have any lunch around here. Got a little water, but but the meetings are lunchtime. I know that there is a couple of things that you all are working on. There's the hope to expand this out so that we can get more people, more groups established that are meeting and walking together and doing life together. I know that you all have met to do some walking. There was a particular book that you all had visited and read. And I think Coach Kemp, whenever he's ready, he's going to come in and talk to us a little bit about that. But before we do, just if there's something that I think the viewing audience, what's something we want them to know about Jedi? What do we? Oh, Coach is ready. Okay, so I'm going to ask you this when we come back. Why should people want to be a part of Jedi? That's going to be one question. And then the other question I'm going to ask you all is to share with us what you have personally learned about yourself. And that's going to be another, like you got 60 seconds to answer that question. So I'm going to bring Coach Kemp on, and we're going to send the ladies backstage. And Coach, well, welcome aboard.
Hey, how we doing?
Good. So I wanted to talk to you just a little bit about some of the walks that you all did, the book that you all have begun to study together. And then I'd like for you to speak a little bit into what responsibly listening looks like.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably not my thing to answer those questions. The one thing I want to do before that, Lori, is in listening to everybody, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for all of my sisters that are a part of this, because the one thing that I heard the most was kind of my name brought up. And I want people to understand this ain't really about Coach Kemp. It really has nothing to do with me, to be quite honest. But, you know, these women have accepted, if you will, the call to say, hey, I don't want to sit in the seat of being a person that doesn't know how to have these conversations and have them well. And so really, they're the ones that, I mean, just to be quite honest, and it might sound a little corny, but, you know, they're my heroes because, you know, we've been doing this walk for the past 18 months. And I don't know anything that I've done outside of marriage for 18 months with anybody. So pretty consistently. And it wasn't just meeting, if you will, once a month, but it was all the, I think, challenging things that we had them do alongside that, where we had this kind of encounter matrix to where each one of them had to do a one-on-one lunch or breakfast or dinner with each other, which I think takes them out of the group setting. Now it's kind of one-on-one. And, you know, in the one-on-one setting, it's hard to hide, right? It's hard to kind of just be a passive, inactive listener. Now you kind of have to be on a little bit. You have to be willing to engage into some of those uncomfortable spaces and places. And so I think along with them, and also Alan's another one that is not on the day, but he's been faithful to me. And then they just thought it was crazy enough that we need to be meeting twice a month. Like once a month wasn't any good. And I think the beauty of that is that I think when, if we're all being honest, I think when we first came in, there was this big thing about, hey man, what are we going to do? Like we get really caught up in this doing attitude and this doing thing. And I'm not going to point any fingers at anybody, but I think Kathy and Jocelyn was the big doers of our group. We said, hey, man, we got to be doing something, right? And so, but we needed that energy and that spirit because I think both of them kept us targeted on where we're looking at we need to go now. You know, one of these things is how do we bring back connection versus collision and now kind of check in with our community to see where are we since then? Mm-hmm. Has anything changed? There's been a lot of things and initiatives that have happened. Everybody wrote a letter saying how racism is a public health crisis, but is it really, right? Or that just dropped off the face of the earth because it's the next thing that have come up. And so, you know, the vision and the mission statement that we came up with, that was a collective, collaborative thing that we all had input into. And so when we talk about responsibly listening, that means being an active listener, but also doing it from a perspective to where not only am I going to listen to you, but this is one of the things that I never forget. You know, Jocelyn being on that connection versus collision panel with us so many times said, hey, it's your responsibility too to go and learn some of these things as you listen. Like that's the responsibility that you have to take on. So responsibly listening means what am I going to do with what I've heard now? And is it just good for me just to listen, to hear, and do nothing with it? And so this is why I commend and admire our Jedi Council, because they said, no, we got to go do something with this. And all of our council's not on today because conflicts and scheduling. But that's the one thing that I love about what we do, Lori, is that we're just not meeting for the sake of meeting. We're actually diving into some uncomfortable spots and spaces, first of all, within our group, but then saying, how do we challenge our individual networks to do the same thing? And so as we go into 2022, it is saying, hey, how do we take this to the next level? But at the end of the day, I mean, yeah, I appreciate my name being said, but there would be no Jedi Council without all the people that's on now and even a few that are missing today.
That's good. That's good. So,
hey, Lord, let me say this. Let me say this real quick. This worked out exactly the way I wanted it to, because if I would have been on earlier, everything would have been centered around me talking. These are the people that you need to hear from. They make the Jedi Council go. And I'm done. Put me backstage.
You're never done. You're never done.
Right. Right. But he is that guy that will sit backstage, right? Drink a bottle of water and smile while you all talk. So, Karen, Karen, talk to us. You guys read a book. Tell us about this book. So, for those of you that might be joining us later in this live, this is the Jedi Council. These folks have continued to meet for the last 18 months. If you remember when George Floyd was murdered, there was Connection versus Collision, the black and white conversation. We were doing panel discussions where panels would come and present. And then 2 weeks later, we do something that we called Next Steps, because back to Jocelyn and Kathy and Coach Kemp, who told us in 2019 that we had to go from noun to verb. We had to do something. Again, I'm going to say it for those who might be just now joining us, that we can talk about racial reconciliation. I'm like, let's not reconcile because it wasn't good to begin with. Let's just move on to racial healing, right? And so the work that has to go into this is going to be this right here, what we're doing. And if that statistic that was quoted back then said that 75% of white people don't have a meaningful, keyword, meaningful relationship with a black person, then the only way we're going to develop those relationships and make our world a better place to live is by doing the work that this small group has begun to do, in which we hope to expand it out to our entire community. And then it'd be great if our world catches on. And there's so many things that the world catches on to, like ripped jeans. I'll never understand that. Like, used to throw jeans away when they got a rip and wear. I'm like, Jesus, do you know how much money I could have saved if I'd have just kept elephant pants and those bell bottoms? And so let's, Karen, talk to us about the book challenge and what you all did with that.
Yeah, so we'd been walking this walk with the Jedi Council and being in relationship with a group. And at a second group, I'm in the Rotary and had an opportunity to do a book study for a book called Heart, Journey Towards Cultural Humility by James Knight, who is actually up in the Cleveland area as the author. So I was in a group as we're meeting with Jedi. So I'm kind of, and that book is really about cultural, the stance of cultural humility, the fact that I'm just going to read from the book. It says, you may never truly understand someone else's struggle, their pain, or their story, but you can hear it, witness it, create space for it, and respectfully walk alongside and fight with them to heal. And so as I'm doing this book with the Rotary group, I thought this is a great book to bring to our Jedi Council, because we were all vulnerable with each other. We were talking about things. So I was a little nervous. I brought the book along, and then the group said, well, great, then you're going to lead the book study. So, God puts us in places sometimes you're just kind of like, because quite honestly, I felt very uncomfortable. Like, how am I as a white person to talk about this racism issue and things like that and be an advocate? But it was a great opportunity for me to learn how to do it. And the book was totally different doing it with this group, because when you are in relationship and people and they tell their story, it's very different than when you're talking about very difficult issues or you're hearing difficult issues, like in the Connection versus Collision. You can hear that sometimes, and unless you know that person and have been in a relationship with them, it kind of goes, okay, over your head. But all the folks in this group, we've built deep relationships and grown to care about each other. And so the book study, doing it with them is very different. So one of the things we've talked about is having the opportunity for other people to come through Love Akron to their own Jedi councils, get to know each other, be vulnerable, talk about difficult issues, and then jump into the book. Because I think that was a thing. It was a learning experience that was greatly enriched by the relationships that were already there.
Yeah. That's good, because when you talk about that culture of humility, that ability to maintain an interpersonal stance, if you will, right? Um, so that kind of leads to my other question, which is, what did you find out about yourself as it pertains to the subject of race relations, race healing? I know that on one of the panels, I don't remember where I was, and it was funny because one of my sisters of a different hue said to me, "Oh my God, I didn't believe you said that." Like on, I'm like, honey, it was a transparent moment because I had shared how for a long time interracial relationships bothered me because I'd see white women with successful black men, and then I looked at the beautiful black women in my family, and I'm like, and so why is this again that they're not married? I have a beautiful cousin. She's like 40 years old, 40 something. Well, she might, yeah, she's 40 something, late 40s, never been married. She's about 6 foot tall. Okay, we're tall women over here. It's in the corn. But couldn't understand why these women didn't have husbands. And so that was I had to come to grips with that thing, that it had nothing to do with those women and those men. Somebody once said you can't help who you love, and you can't, and you should be free to love who you want to love. But that was just, it happened at Summit Mall. And I'm not talking about 50 years ago. I'm talking about in the last probably 2010, 5, 7 years or so. And I would have, and so today it requires a work, because that same feeling that I used to have, I have to now address it when it sticks its ugly head up. And on occasion, it does. Now, that's a transparent moment. Call me whatever you will, but it was my issue to have, and it's the one that I have chosen to work my way through. My Aunt Kathy, she's very white. She's a little bit country and a whole lot of rock and roll. And I'm telling you, and I love her. But do you understand how I was struggling with that, even though there are, white women and men in my family that clearly weren't born here. So they got here through relationships and marriage. But I didn't look at them that way. And so sometimes I think that what is your truth? What's that thing that when you heard it, it challenged you, like it challenges you today, maybe even like me? Not as much as it used to. I just used to have an attitude about it, want to roll my eyes and be like, whatever, what? Where did that, Pastor Lori? Where did that come from? So I don't know who wants to go first. But y'all know I love to pick on Jocelyn. That's my girl. And I know she's quick on her feet. So the rest of y'all get ready. Jocelyn, talk to me. What's your truth that you want to be transparent with?
Let me choose one. I'll choose one. So for me, I will say, and I think I said this, I'm sure that I said this in one of the panel discussions for the Connection versus Collision series, that I was prepared very early. My parents intentionally prepared me when I was like 5 for a world that would look at me in a way that wasn't always favorable. So I've always been very aware of my culture, very aware of my skin, very aware of racism, and have experienced it at different levels, and it's manifested in different ways as I've grown up. I have many stories, but what was concerning for me was, one, when I was invited to join the Jedi Council, I absolutely did not know what this was. And as I've said before, I'm an introvert, and I like to understand what I'm walking into before I walk into it. And I actually thought that our executive director at South Street, Joe Tucker, had set me up for this. And so I questioned him. I said, "Did you do this?" to me. And he said, I don't know. I don't know what it is. Even for the Connection versus Collision conversations, I thought it was a setup, but it wasn't. but for the council, my concern was talking to people, white people specifically, who were not ready to accept truths. And I don't mean opinions, I mean facts. And willing to deal with them, excuse me, deal with them internally. And as one of a part of our statement is listening responsibly. But I've always said for many years, once I hear something, I'm responsible for whatever I heard. Doesn't matter if I like it, doesn't matter if it feels good. I'm responsible for the information that I have been given. And so I was very concerned about talking with white people who were not ready to be responsible with what they heard and what they had experienced. Um, and I held that that concern for a very long time. And then as we embarked on this journey together, little by little, and it was a little at first unsettling, but and I couldn't fully trust it at first because history. And so it was just good to find people who had different experiences from mine, who were willing to not only just listen and gasp at atrocities, but also begin to be good representatives in the spheres of their influence. Whoever they could influence is in their families, in their friendships, in their whatever leadership positions that they had, that they were willing to then take responsibility for what they heard and then change their actions and their beliefs, some of them core beliefs, as we continued on. And so that's what I'm excited about. That's what was different for me, and it made me not be as quick to judge and enact my prejudices with people who don't look like me.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Amy, same question. Same question. What is that? Woo, what's that thing?
Well, the first thing is that I have more internal work to do. That there's more to do. There's more to learn. And that trust is what Jocelyn said. It's like, thank you, Jocelyn, for saying all that you have in the journey. I've been listening. We see you and hear you. But honestly, one of the big things, too, was that I had to exercise some courage in some relationships as a white woman.
Yeah.
In this,
Missy? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it really struck me, like when we were working on the statement that we all read earlier, when I was listening, I needed courage.
Yeah. I can imagine. I can only imagine. I was in someplace picking up some food last week, and the lady got a piece of carrot cake, and so did I. And so I said, "Oh my God, you got the carrot cake?" Now she's a white lady, right? And she was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Girl, let me tell you, you got to heat that up in the microwave. Don't put the whole piece. Just take half of it, cut it in half, put it on a saucer, heat it in the microwave for 10 seconds. Get you a cup of tea. You're gonna be ready for bed." So then we're laughing and talking about carrot cake like we knew each other forever. But my mother used to say, "Never forget people are people." And so you meet some people that weren't so nice, but then you meet some people and you think, did they know I was Black? Because people are people. If we get cut, we bleed the same blood. And this right here is it speaks to the truth of that. It speaks to the truth of that. And so, Amy, thank you so much. Missy and then Penny, same question. What's your transparent truth? She may have muted herself.
Sorry, I forgot. Yep, I unmuted. Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah. Tell us your transparent truth.
Sure. I was going to say not to piggyback on Amy, but I'm going to, because as I was making my notes, I just thought of the continued work that I have to do to stay brave and present in conversations. And I think something that I've learned in the process is that I didn't think I had a lot of assumptions going into this, but as I've sat in conversations, I realized that I did, and I still do. Even as recently as a couple weeks ago, I was with a couple and I asked a question, assuming that they both would answer the same way, and they answered completely different based on their experiences, based on some other things. And it just took me a moment to realize, like, I think there was an assumption that even within their marriage, their response would be the same to this question. And so just staying open and present and curious and just wanting to grow in that process.
Okay, that's good. Penny, keep it
Me?
real. Come on, talk to us. What's the struggle, girl?
One of the struggles that we had openly discussed is, like, for instance, my name. That a lot of times with my name is that some assume that I'm a white woman, and the way I talk, and I really grew up with white culture more so than I did Black culture. And it's always an assumption that, she talks like a white girl, she acts like a white girl, that's what her preference is. And it's really just taking down the layers to be able to look at a person as an individual, because with that comes his own story, if you will. The assumption that because someone talks a certain way, their name or the way they were raised means something, versus really taking the layer or taking the time, I would say, to be able to build relationships and relationship goals without assumption. And I think a lot of times when we're talking about racial divisions, we often lose the fact that people are individuals. No matter how you cut the cake, no matter how you try to peel back that layer, that, as was discussed before, people are people, and really be able to look at people and see them as an individual versus being biased on what we assume, what their experience is. Because someone like me can deal with just as much as prejudice as someone who has not been raised like me or does not have a name like me. And so just really excited, I think, that if I can just turn a twist on it, is that we all become, which I love about what we're doing here. We all have the opportunity to become, to be able to affect every single person that we come day to day with. That, we look at people as individuals versus people as labeled whatever they are.
That's good. That's good. That's good. So we're going to come back to that question. We're not there yet. I think Kathy, speak to us about that truth, that thing that you're still dealing with, the work that you got to do on Kathy when nobody else is around.
Boy, do I have a lot of work to do. I came into this 18 months ago, not knowing what I was getting into, just knowing that I wanted and my heart needed to get into this deeper and to be open and honest and about my feelings and where I've come from. And as I've said, I grew up in a Jewish world. I was pretty insulated. Although, with that said, I went to Canton McKinley, which was half
Me
black,
too.
half white. I was the only Jewish person out of 285 people in my class. So I pretty much had my white friends there. We were a very, very segregated school. And I had an incident that happened day one of my freshman year with a Black girl. I'll call her a girl. She's a woman now. And it took me forever to get over it. It was a really terrible thing. And I held a lot of prejudice, and I kept to my Jewish life more than anything. And so I think by doing this and being in some other black and white conversations with people around the country on Zooms, I've opened my heart up to what's possible and what real life is. I wasn't living in reality. I was living in my little Jewish world. And yeah, we have our prejudices and we have anti-Semitism, but it's not the same. And I've realized that it's not the same. And I'm still struggling, even in our Jedi group. And I think I've mentioned this before to the group. Sometimes I'm afraid to say something because I don't know if I'm going to hurt someone or if I'm going to sound stupid. And so I to myself, and I shouldn't, because this group is all about opening up, sharing, not judging, being who you are. And I'm getting better, but I have a long way to go with that. And I really thank this group for opening themselves up to me and my background and my struggles. So
Wow, that is great. I was thinking, and we're going to go to Karen, but I was thinking about, I went to the movies on Monday night in Cuyahoga Falls at the Cinemark, my favorite theater, unless I go to North Canton Bistro. And I pulled up and I thought, oh my God, I don't think I want to go. I'm a little COVID, whatever. There were so many cars from a distance. And then when I pulled into the parking lot, there were seemed like a gazillion people standing outside of their cars. And so my goddaughter was with me. And I was like, what is going on? Did the movie just let out or what? And so there were people all over the parking lot, white people. So you talk about stigma, you talk about what is preconceived, what history has fed us, blah, 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 blah. I took a picture. I said, nobody will believe this. They think only black people stand out in front of your car and act ignorant. No, white people do it too. Here go all y'all's kids out here. And I said this to the lady in the movie theater. She was a white lady. I said, listen, because if I was in my neighborhood, I'd have drove my car right up behind and caught them with my rear view mirror. I said, but if I do that over here, I might get shot. So I ain't gonna do that. So now I'm telling y'all the truth. Truthful moment. That's what I said. If I was over here near Copley Road, oh no, honey, I'd have skid your little behind. I'd have scooted you on across the street. I'd have helped you on your way. Somebody's mama might came and looked for me, but but not with a gun. She'd have came with a baseball bat or a fist. But I'm just saying that, and I'm saying that to be funny, but I'm saying seriously. Sometimes we create these scenarios as if to say it only happens in the black community, but they would not move. Like I had to drive 2 miles an hour just to get through. And I'm going, oh, okay, they act like that too. The whole world is crazy. That's what I said. My goddaughter should sit over in that seat cracking up. So Kathy, there's a question out there. So I'm going to ask you to do yours, but tie it into the question. The first question was Phyllis D. DeHart says, so when you have listened to each other, meet to go home, is there really a change in your heart within your family and your job? And we got 2 more questions, so we're going to try to get to those 2 before we get out of here. What do you say, Kathy?
I think it was Karen.
Oh, was it Karen?
No, Karen, you want, but I can try to answer the other.
Oh, it is Karen. No, it was Karen.
Ahead.
Yeah, it was Karen. I'm saying Kathy, girl, we're going to get together, Kathy. But Karen,
yes,
that's
ma'am.
who I wanted to ask. Karen.
Yeah, so
with your question, with your answer.
Sure. So the biggest takeaway for me is, so I was adopted by George and Donna Zarava when I was a kid, and was given a very great opportunity. Was adopted, lived in Hudson, lived in Silver Lake, and that whole idea of unconscious bias and all the work that I've done and learning about it and things like that. And we learned about in the book, we talked about moral licensing, the idea of I'm a good person. And that it was something that, I just thought I was, but this group, like the learning I've had about unconscious bias, not from a book, but from truly having people be the mirrors to me, has been wonderful, to speak the truth in love to people and have that conversation. And I also felt like at the beginning of this journey that I couldn't make a difference. Like this was such a big thing and it couldn't be a difference. And Phyllis asked a question. So when you've listened to each other meet and go home, is there really a change in your heart within your family and jobs? Absolutely, because I look at things totally differently. And we didn't talk about it, but Jocelyn, I gave her the nickname E.F. Hutton because she speaks the truth in love so beautifully. And there is such a difference when I am talking to others, whether it's in my work environment, whether it's in my church environment or home, to say, I hear what you're saying, but I need to tell you about my friend Jocelyn. And I need you to hear like what this conversation was. And when, I can say, hey, my friend Jocelyn's singing at Lock 3. Let's bring a bunch of friends there. Um, that has been really the difference. And that's what this Jedi Council has been about, is about building friendships that speak the truth in love. And there are so few places in the world today that you have the opportunity to build those relationships. And Lori talked about it in one of the meetings, talking about, is someone your acquaintance or are they truly your friend? And yes, COVID has kept us apart and on Zoom. I just look forward to the day that we're meeting in person, because these people have become my family. I care about them and, I check in on them. And so, yes, Phyllis, for me, it has really made a difference in how I operate in the world, having true vulnerable friendships, that this whole racial inequity, racism issue, that it truly affects my friends.
Yep, absolutely. Anybody else want to speak to that? What happens when you get home? Is it really making a difference, not just with you, but with your family or in your community or in your circle, your sphere of influence? Go ahead, Susie.
Yeah, I would like to jump in real quick because I think that's an important question that Phyllis is asking. Like, how do you basically act this out once you've learned it and had this cozy little group? Then what, right? So just real quick, I'll keep it to like 30 seconds max, is that, because of the authenticity of this group and with coaches' leadership, with Lori's support of these groups, and, Danny, of course, keeping us on track. Because of the things that I learned in this group, I became more comfortable in the conversation. So I was able to relay that comfort and, beginning familiarity with this process to my workplace. So, after George Floyd, many companies developed, as our company did, employee resource groups. And one of them was the Black, Indigenous, People of Color group. And so I became more involved in that and more involved in the process and with the chairs of that organization, because of this authentic start and, that I had with our Jedi Council. It allowed me to feel comfortable to say, hey, what are we doing here at work and how can we make it better? And how is it going for you guys as leaders? And, it did translate to my workplace. And are we earning the right at my workplace to talk about justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion? We want to make sure we earn that right. Don't just say a nice statement about it. So it allowed me to be comfortable to say, hey, are we doing what we need to be doing here? And to just keep that conversation going as well, and to support the people that are leading that group at my work. Thank you.
Beautiful. Anybody else want to jump in there? Because I think that is important too, to talk about the impact that it's having and how it is making a difference. Because you're right. People will just look and say, oh, that's great. 12 or 15 of you guys have gotten together and kumbaya. And y'all know I'm the queen of, if it's kumbaya, I'm not coming. If we're not going to see, if we are not going to see change, if there's not going to be great impact, then the to me, the most precious commodity we have is time.
Right.
And if we waste it, it's just
Right.
gone. So the work that you all are doing, and I love what Karen said about being supportive of one another. I love also what Kathy said when she spoke to the fact that sometimes you don't want to ask the question because you don't want to offend. And would I be correct in saying that you guys are moving, are growing to that point where you can um, feel the confidence to ask whatever the hard question is on one side, either side, and then trust that you would get an honest, compassion full, information full answer from your counterparts? Would I say that that's where you all are moving to or have come to by this point? Don't everybody speak at once, but you can just, yeah. Anybody have a comment about that? Nope. Okay.
I would just say,
Just thought I put it out there.
I would
Thanks, Jocelyn.
Because Jocelyn, I think people want to know the truth. And I think for Black people want to know that if I'm going to come to this group or a group like this, am I going to come with people that are authentically interested in who I am and what I am? And then here's the deal, doing life together with me forever. Judge Donna Carr, I tease her all the time. I'm like, we twin sisters. You my sister. I told her the other day, I said, well, if something happened to me, you got to meet my kids. Because, if you're going to be their auntie, and that's what I said. People say, oh, that a girl at my church. She said, there was another white couple family, couple of them that went to the church at the time. Thank you, Kemp. And she said, oh yeah, that's my friend. And I said, oh, so you guys, y'all go over each other's house for dinner? And she was like, I said, oh, do your kids do like the birthday parties together? So do y'all go to the park, hang out, go to Starbucks? She said, I said, girl, that is not your friend. That's just somebody you know from church. That's not your friend. And so I think that what we're looking to do is to create a pathway, a bridge by which people can feel safe to encounter one another in order to develop the kind of relationships that bind us together and give us that ability to speak our truth without fear of being ostracized, without fear of being coined the mad Black woman, without fear of being coined something else. And so I believe that's what this group, that's what we're here for. That's why we keep meeting. So we're gonna go to Jocelyn, and then I think Coach Kemp is gonna come in and answer another one of our questions that have been asked on Facebook. Go ahead, Jocelyn.
I just wanted to say that I have had to, I don't want to say curtail, because that means that I'm not really dealing with my internal prejudices or biases. But I've had to confront myself about my perception of white people. I come from a family that is deeply steeped in civic service and religious leadership and in our religious communities and so forth and so on. And so I'm very much aware of what it means to serve people who look like you and serve people who don't, and have been for my entire life. But I still have I had to realize that the prejudices and the biases and all of those other things come from fear, because I know, and I've said this before in a connection versus collision conversations. I know that if a white person wanted to do something to me, they could omit a truth. They could expand a lie. They could whatever. And make me a villain in a situation where I may not even be involved at all. And so there is a present fear of the fact that I know that even in intersectionality, sorry, not just being a Black person, but being a Black woman, that I don't always have a voice that will be listened to.
Right.
I may say it because I have some type of built-in courage. I think that's just my lineage, being a Grant, but I may say it, but that doesn't mean that everyone's going to listen. And so to have a space where people are listening to me is not only humbling, it is terrifying. And it makes me very careful. I'm always careful about my words anyway, because I lead in other spaces as well. But I'm very careful about what I say in this circle, because I know people are listening. And that this relationship with this particular Black woman may determine how white people in this group may enter relationships with other Black people. So I'm careful about what I say, but I also have had to check myself about my fears of white people and what they can do to someone who looks like me if they don't have the heart to listen.
Right.
So that's what I wanted to say.
Very good. Very good. Coach Kemp, I'm gonna, I think he's on the sideline. Like, put me in, coach. He knows what that feels like. He's got some players that feel that way. So I feel like the coach today. But come on, coach, talk to us a little bit. I know there's a question out there about the Interfaith Justice Series, and we are talking about the impact this 18-month relationship has made on the lives of not just the participants, but how it's making impact in their homes and in their families. I know that Karen Hardlicka has a hard stop at 1:10, so we're gonna have to get her out of here. But Coach, go ahead real quick, and then we're gonna send Karen off.
Yeah, I'm aware of the Interfaith Justice Series. I participated in it. I think it was before COVID, and I think, and I'm not for sure about this. I'm not for sure if the Justice Series is open. And far as my understanding, it was only for a particular number of churches, which I think there was. And I think, Kathy, you'll be able to help me out with this, but I think it was a synagogue, faith, a Lutheran church, a predominantly Black church, and maybe there was one more. I want to say there was a part of that series, and it wasn't a series that was necessarily, and I could be wrong, but I've never understood it to be something that anybody or any church could jump into, to my understanding. So that's how I'm going to answer that question.
Do you want me to say something, Kemp? Or
go ahead, please.
I'm part of Temple Israel. I'm a member, which is one of the 4 organizations that is involved in the Interfaith Justice Series. And it's Faith Lutheran, St. Hilary, and New Hope Baptist. I believe, I'm not positive, I believe it was established to have a minimal amount of organizations, because actually this time we are going to try to meet in person. And so it makes it more personal because it's over dinner. I don't know that anybody could handle hundreds and hundreds of people, coming to this program and still get the benefit of us building our relationships with each other. The only other thing I wanted to say about this, which I think is so cool, is that the Interfaith Justice Series, which is starting in March, is using the Cultural Humility book. That's what we're doing. And James Knight is actually facilitating it. So it'll be really interesting. Karen, I think you did an amazing job. Maybe she's off here already. But I'm looking forward to going through it again and maybe having a different perspective on the whole thing. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I was aware of. And I know we're going to get ready to go as well, but I just want to say, kind of to the question that you asked, and Jocelyn picked up on it. I think this is only continue to be the beginning for us. And I think anytime you're going into these type of conversations, and it doesn't have to be a Black and a white conversation. It can be a male and a female conversation. It can be a older person and a younger person conversation. I think we have to understand that we're all coming in with our perspectives and our isms. And as long as we're okay with acknowledging what those are and being comfortable with truth telling, That doesn't happen at the beginning, I think. But I think everybody has to take in mind that this is all about a moving at a speed of trust type of a process. It was like that for us as a Jedi Council. Again, we've been meeting for 18 months. And so the very first meeting, it was a lot of, if you've been to like the dance when you're in junior high and it was called Wallflowers, it was a lot of that in the first meeting. It wasn't, oh man, we're gonna throw this out here and just, no, man, it was, there was trust that had to be built. And so I think if you're about wanting to build trust and have these type of relationships, it's understanding it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to be one of those things that everybody just comes in and everything is healed and whole. No, man, we're working towards wholeness and healness. But understand, in order to do that, we have to be willing to do the tenets that I think we've been able to establish, which is responsibly listen, responsibly learn, and responsibly lead together. If you can make a commitment on doing that, I think you have a really great opportunity to build relationships cross-culturally, cross-generationally, cross-gender-wise, cross-socioeconomic, political, and everything, if you're willing to do those types of things. So I enjoy it. I am in all of the people that I'm here with, because they inspire me to keep coming back and doing it, and to let me know that, hey, Coach Kemp, this is possible. So I love you all. I appreciate everything that you all continue to do to help me and to inspire me and to really be the change that Akron needs at this time. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Coach. So, we're about a few minutes to wrap up, and it's lunchtime. So listen, if you joined us today, we'll be back again. Just keep watching Facebook. Check out Love Akron, our Facebook page. Check us out on YouTube. You'll find our flyers, Instagram. You'll see graphics and information about the upcoming next Jedi lunchtime meeting. So we want to encourage you to get your lunch and plan to be a part. I'm asking these ladies, I'm going to start with Penny, if she will share with us 3 words. This 18 months has been for you. What? 3 words.
New beginning, continual new beginnings.
Continual new beginnings. Amy, I'm just going to work my way down. 3 words that describe what these 18 months have been for you.
Humility, courage, and love.
Beautiful. Susan.
Oh man, things are always hard for me. I would say meaningfulness. A term that Coach uses, heart work versus hard work, and just an honor.
Good. Jocelyn. 3 words.
I was trying to think. I thought you would give me more time. I will say challenging, encouraging, and the word that comes to mind is responsible. I have to be responsible with all of the hearts that are involved in this group, as well as my own.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Kathy?
Oh boy. Okay, I'm coming up with a million words, but the first 3 that popped in my head is love, truth, and faith. Faith in each other, and that we're all faith-based. It doesn't matter if I'm Jewish or Muslim or whatever, we're here for each other in faith.
Beautiful. Missy, what you say, girl?
All my words have been taken, but I'll say encouraging, meaningful, and equipping.
Beautiful. I would say that just watching what's happened over the last 18 months, one word that comes to me is expansion. I believe God is expanding our territory of influence. He's expanding our hearts to make room for people that look like us and that don't. And then I am mostly helped and hopeful. That was 4 words. Y'all know I cheated. But that's what you get to do when the coach makes you the moderator for the day. Well, ladies, listen. And gentlemen,
nobody asked me my 3 words.
No, because we're gonna let you close us out.
I don't want to close out.
You don't want to close out? Okay, go ahead.
My 3 words are simple.
Yeah.
Love, love, love. 'Cause that's what it took
That's it.
for these past 18 months for us to continue to get together. Love.
Well, I love that. I love that. Listen, it has been an amazing time with all of you today. And I do really, as summer is coming, I've found a few new restaurants that have some outdoor fresh air kind of dining. So call me up any day. I'm good for lunch, dinner, breakfast, you name it. We're gonna have to make time. And I realized that over the course of the last couple of months. Um, Sitting at one point for COVID for 2 weeks. And I realized the one thing that, if that was the it for me, the one thing that I regretted was that there were a lot of things that I kept putting off. And I kept, I'll do that. I'll get together with them. I'll call them. No, let's not put off for tomorrow what we can do today. And so I appreciate you all coming and spending your time with us, both here in the live and those of you that are watching us on Facebook and YouTube. Just a reminder, we'll be coming back your way. Pack a lunch and plan to join us for Jedi Council at lunchtime. Well, it's been real, ladies. I love you all, Coach. Love you. And I want to tell you, as Coach Kemp typically ends every live and everything we do, if you don't do anything else today, make sure that you love
Akron.
See you the next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Love you guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.